This podcast is brought to you by Blackaby Ministries International. To find out more, visit blackaby.org.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Richard Blackaby Leadership Podcast. My name is Sam, and I'm your host, and here to walk you through the issues, help you become a better leader, is none other than Richard Blackaby.
Good to be with you, Sam.
Always a pleasure, Richard. And we are recording this in a time where we're at a wait-and-see period with this election. And, it doesn't seem that there are answers on the horizon. And so we're recording this a little bit before it airs. So by the time you're listening to this, we might know who the next president is. But we thought that this might be a good time to bring up another issue that perhaps this presidential election cycle has raised, and that is the issue of waiting.
Yeah.
I know you don't like to wait, and I think no one likes to wait, if we're honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
We'd much rather be doing something than waiting. And for the leader, why is that something to consider? What does that reveal about us if we don't like to wait? So what's the, and we'll get into the details of it as we go here, but why bring up this topic now?
Yeah, well, as you say, Sam, the election certainly was a time of waiting. It's a long. It seems like, especially with the COVID concerns and issues, this time long gone now are the, find out by dinner time who's the new president.
Yeah.
And so people kept waiting and trying to decide. We were watching the news, and it's like, okay, well, at 10 o'clock, do we just go to bed? Is there more do we wait up till 11? Do we wait up till 12? And of course, then it dragged on for several days, and then you go into court battles and legal issues, and so it's kind of like, well, how long is it going to take until all the dust is finally settled and we know something? And
this is all against the backdrop of COVID-19, where people are just waiting.
Yeah,
for
when
vaccine,
is this going to be done?
Waiting
and when can we stop wearing masks everywhere? When can we just go and sit in the stands and watch my son's high school football game, or those kind of things? A lot of questions, and it can drive you crazy when it's, well, we don't know, or maybe in the new year, or maybe by the spring, and so I think I was just reminded, I think, especially with the election, but really since COVID, especially, waiting to hear about something, waiting to hear if I've been furloughed, waiting to hear if I'm being brought back, waiting to hear if this stimulus package is going to pass, where it just seems like life consists in waiting. I just actually came right from taking my parents to a doctor's appointment. And so speaking of waiting, it's fresh on my mind.
Yeah. What's the point of an appointment time when you get there and it's 30 minutes, an hour on, and you're still waiting?
And then they deceive you into putting you in a room, and you think that means you're closer to seeing a doctor now. It just means
that's on purpose.
They've shifted you to a different place to wait.
They've been in the waiting room 30 minutes, so let's put them in the
change their scenery.
Examination room for another 30.
So waiting is, I think, an issue of life, but certainly leaders need to wrestle with this one because, for one, waiting tends to reveal some things about you, your character, your worldview, your walk with God. A lot is exposed when you watch someone wait. Just sit in a waiting room in a doctor's office where the doctor's running late, and you'll learn a lot about people by the way they handle it. What they do while they're waiting, their attitude, their politeness or rudeness as it develops. But also, I think that waiting or not waiting has led to some significant mistakes, regrets. A lot of people, I could tell you, in life and in business and in church work, wish they could have a do-over and either wait longer or not have waited as long. And so it raises a lot of issues. So when do you sort of cut bait and move on? I've waited now for this long. Have I just been wasting a lot of time just sitting still? Should I have been moving forward sooner? Or did I quit? Did I give up just days before we might have had a breakthrough? Did I jumped the gun, and maybe I settled for less than what I could have if I just waited a little bit longer. So you look back in life sometimes and think, I think I should have been more patient on that one, or maybe I was too patient. And so we want to talk about waiting. I think it has a lot to say as with what leaders
Well,
have
it's
to
so
face.
fundamental to the human experience too. Like, waiting for perhaps a spouse, waiting for, it's at every turn, it seems you have to wait for something.
Yeah. And you could say perhaps one of the keys to success for people is how well they handle their waiting. So, first issue I think maybe is just if you struggle to wait, if you struggle waiting for something to occur, or the right opportunity to come along, what does that reveal about yourself, or what does that reveal about your character? And obviously, number one, it can mean that you lack patience. You're just not a patient person.
Yeah.
And patience certainly is a virtue. Patience doesn't mean that you don't want to get things done, but it means you have a sense of timing. It means that you want to maximize your effort. And so, you know what, if I just wait a little bit longer, it's kind of like, when you see impatient people, they tend to waste a lot of time. It's kind of like, okay, I've got to pick this up at the store, but my dry cleaning won't be ready until 1:00 this afternoon, and then I've got to do this, and so I'm just so impatient. I'm going to go ahead and just go run down there and pick up the one thing that is ready. Well, in the end, you make 3 trips.
Yeah.
You could have made 1 trip if you'd just been willing to wait until the last item was ready, but instead you're running back and forth all day long, burning extra fuel and wasting more time, and then you see patient people who actually get more done oftentimes because they're not wasting effort. They're not making 3 trips when they could have made 1 trip. And so when you struggle to wait, it certainly says something about your patience. It also can say something about your lack of faith or your faith in God. And I watch this particularly with things like the election, when people are agonizing, and of course vote leads are changing in states, and you feel like the longer you wait, maybe the less chance your person has of winning, or more chance they have winning, and you just want time to hurry up and end. It's kind of like waiting for Christmas when you're a kid. It's like, how can I think it was my son Mike one time when he was still 2 weeks out from Christmas, and he was like, I just wish I could fast forward my life. It's just, but what that sometimes means is it reveals a lack of faith in God. It says, I just don't trust that God's going to work this one out the way I think he should. And so I just wish that things would hurry up and get done. And but if you really believe that at the end of the day, God is going to have his way, whatever it is that God wants to do, he's going to accomplish. That does give you a certain calmness and peace to say it's not, and it reminds you that it's out of your control. It's you just have to trust God, and you have to leave it in his hands. And if something belongs to God, I just can't stress about it. I've got to just know ultimately it's not me. So God, if God's the one that's going to do this, then it's going to be up to his timing as well.
So I suspect I can hear people asking, so we should all just become passive then, and just, hey, whatever happens, happens. You sort of take the...
Yeah, well, and that's a good question. I think it actually leads to a third point, which is when you struggle to wait, it often means that you assume it's all about you. It's all up to you. That you've got to take action because you're the only one that you've got to do it. You've got to fix it. And what I would just say is, certainly if there's something that you can do, you should do it. And my general philosophy is the sooner the better. If it's something that the timing's right now, then don't wait till tomorrow to do it. But sometimes waiting means I realize I've got no control over this. I've done all I can do. My mother is not always patient in her older age, and we'll be at the counter. I've been taking her to some doctor's appointments, and you check in and you're waiting, and I've been doing a lot of that with her lately, and so she'll say, well, why don't you go up there and tell them that we've been waiting 10 minutes now? It's like, well, Mom, we just checked in 10 minutes ago. They know we're here. Yeah, but maybe if you told them, it would make a difference. And well, okay, so then we tell them, well, they're running a little behind, but they should get to us soon. Well, 10 minutes later, well, maybe you should go just see how it is now. It's like, Mom,
You need like a countdown clock.
There just comes a point where it's just overkill. You just need to wait at this point.
Well, and I think that's even why there are things like the progress bar, on certain things. If you download something or, if you're...
Because we are not good at waiting.
Yeah.
So we want to feel like there's progress at least.
We need to know where are we in the process? Like, are we at the beginning of the wait period? Are we in the middle, or are we close to the end?
Yeah. And that's why I think even sometimes when you call in and they say right now we're estimating about 10-minute wait. So it just somehow knowing it's 10 minutes makes a difference. But that just to say, if you waiting, there are times where you can do some things while you wait. There's some things maybe you can speed things up if you do, say something, and then there's other times where you really, it's at this point it's out of your control. And so, are you okay with things that are out of your control?
Yeah.
Can you still have peace? Can you trust that God's still in control? So, and also, I think when you struggle with waiting, it also reveals a short-term view. When you're impatient, you feel like, this has got to be dealt with now, and sometimes things take longer than we'd like, and things to be done well take longer than we would like. And oftentimes the people I've known who've really struggled a lot in life are the people that didn't have a very long-term view. They didn't want to wait for some things to ripen and to mature and to come to pass. And
the quick fix is so attractive.
Yeah,
often.
and we live in that kind of microwavable society where it's just speed everything up and just blast it and get it done. And it takes it's a character issue to be able just to be calm and to know that certain things take time, and certainly important things tend to take time. And so, fifth thing is just an overactive sense of urgency. Sometimes things aren't as urgent as we tend to think they are. We could be better at waiting if we didn't see everything as an emergency. Again, this just kind of brings my mother up a lot now, right now. But my mom she's kind of manages the household with my dad, as you know, and so she has a lot of responsibility on her plate. And so there's times where she'll the other day she called and it's like, well, Richard, have you done this yet, or have you decided this yet? And it's like, well, no, I'm still, I'm still checking on this, I'm checking on that. Well, I may just have to go ahead and just decide, or I may just have to go and do it myself then. And it's, of course, she's not capable of doing that, but I'll just say, Mom, just chill out. Like this is not an emergency. We still need to get this information. We still need to get on this list. We still need to figure out that. We still need to close down this. There's 3 or 4 things that need to be done first, and we're on schedule. We're not behind. We're not late. It's just the process. But sometimes people they have this feeling of, because they feel urgent and they feel stressed.
Yeah.
Then it's like I don't know. And I mean I've been there too. Sometimes it's just like, let's just decide. I mean, this may come back to bite us, but at least it'll be over. We don't have to wait anymore.
Yeah.
And of course, those are usually the times that lead to the most regret.
Well, I think sometimes when you see, like when you've made your decision and you know what the next, what it's going to look like ultimately, the steps to get there can sometimes seem like a barrier rather than a necessary part of the process. You say, well, I know I want it to look like X, but like all these other things that have to happen in between are a frustration and a distraction, and so I want to get rid of those as fast as I can to get to that X.
Yeah, and there's sometimes where there's things you can do, and that's great instead of just sitting still. But at the same time, it is certainly characteristic of this society that we're not. Everything has been so instant for us at this point that. To wait for anything, just have slower downloadable internet speeds or cell phone coverage. anymore. We're just used to it being faster and faster and faster, and so we tend to live our lives that way. And
and it's it's an instant gratification society that we live in now, and so nothing. Very few people want to put in the time to see long-term results. Yeah,
and just a couple things that just struggling to wait reflect on. An important one is it may reflect that you're not very good at delayed gratification, which we've kind of touched on, but certainly in things like education, I've known people that they were really encouraged to go to college or to pick up a master's degree or even a PhD, but they were just anxious to get on with it. They were tired of school. They were tired of, another degree first before I can start getting into a profession. And so I realized that if I don't persevere and get this other degree, this MBA, then I may always struggle to get a management position in my job. I can get a job now, but long term, I may have a lower ceiling on where I can go with that because I just wasn't patient enough to wait out and get one more degree. And I want to start earning money now. I want to get out there and stop having to go to school now. And I see that in marriage. And this can be heartbreaking sometimes, but I see people that they just want to be married. They want to start their family, and they're looking at their prospects. They've got one offer on the table, and not that attractive necessarily, not the kind of spouse that they'd ever dreamed of being married to, but it is
available.
Yeah, available. Yeah. Sometimes that's people's greatest quality, and I've seen people that thought, well, better than nothing. And of course, we've talked about that before. Yeah. Sometimes things aren't better than nothing. Sometimes nothing is better.
Yeah.
And you get stuck in a job you hate or a marriage you hate because you just want to get on with it. Hey, I'm 19 now and I'm not married yet. Let's get on. I don't want to wait until I'm 25 to meet the right person. So we don't have that character stamina to wait for the right thing, to delay some things, gratification, so that we can get way more gratification later when we've got the right thing. And that just kind of goes in with just a lack of perseverance. Sometimes waiting is hard, and it means steeling yourself and enduring some things. When people take time in their starter home and to build up their home so that that's not where they plan to live the rest of their life, but you be a good steward of what you have and the investment you have now, and then later you upgrade, and sometimes you finish your master's degree before you start your family, or there's just but there's a lot of tough decisions you have to make, and sometimes it means you go without some things in the immediate term, so that you maybe have more things in the long term. But it means you got to persevere. And some people just are not good at persevering. If they can't get the rewards now, they don't have the fortitude to keep persevering. And the last one, just to say, that is revealed sometimes, when I see people who struggle with waiting, it's that often they don't really have much hope for the future. I mean, if you really are confident in the future, if you're confident that God has the future in his hands and that things ultimately will work out, then you can put up with some stuff that aren't how you'd like right now. But if you feel like, and we've kind of talked a bit about this, the way people looked at the U.S. election, it was like, well, if my guy doesn't win, then there's no hope. Yeah. all is lost. And I would say, well, if you don't really have a very high view of God, then that may be the case. Yeah. But if you believe that God continues to rule, God continues to bring good out of bad, then you realize that there's still hope. And so it may mean that there's some things I'm hoping for in my country that I may have to wait a bit longer for. But I have hope that one day we will see that, because God is in control and God's not given up. And I know God can use people like me to make a difference. And so sometimes when I see people that just they jump the gun, they just take what's there, they don't persevere, it kind of reflects a lack of hope that things can be any better. If you really believe things can be better, then you tend to have more steel in your soul to just wait it out. If you don't have much hope, then you just go ahead and take what's there. And so, basically just to summarize this first part by just saying, look at how well you've been handling waiting on things. Are you a nervous wreck? Are you anxious? Are you obnoxious? Are you grumpy? Or are you resigned to the fact that you've done what you can? Maybe you voted. Now you got to wait and find out how that turns out, or what that's going to do to the economy, or you do what's in your purview to do, but then you also just sort of hold on to God and wait patiently to see how things unfold over time. And that's going to be a challenge for some folks.
Oh, for sure. Well, let's take a quick break here, and we'll be right back. Join Richard Blackaby on November 10th for a virtual interactive men's conference. Hosted by Iron Sharpens Iron, this virtual event will be from November 10th to 14th and features over 30 speakers. Find out more and register at ironsharpensiron.net. Well, Richard, we've looked at how you handle waiting reveals about you as a person, and I suspect that there are different situations in where you have to wait, and then there's some situations where you don't have to wait.
Yeah. And
we've talked about this before in hiring processes where you've taken the best available, but the person that you were supposed to hire just wasn't available yet, and we just didn't wait long enough to find that person. So maybe walk us through those situations where you should wait versus those when you shouldn't wait.
Yeah, and sometimes I think you just need to stop and say, I know I'm frustrated, I know I'm anxious here, I really want to get this thing wrapped up. And of course, as we've said before, sometimes what makes you a great leader can also be your Achilles heel as well. And so people like me, we like closure. We like to make a decision.
Yeah.
I don't like loose ends. And so that's going to always drive me toward, let's decide, let's get this thing done. Let's wrap this up. And so I'm going to have to, for me, every time I wait, I'm having to fight against my natural instincts. And those natural instincts normally make me a good leader, because I don't leave stuff undealt with. If it's something I'm supposed to do, I get on it, and people know it'll be taken care of. But sometimes there's some evidence that just suggests for this one, it's better to wait. And so 4 things I would just say. Sometimes you wait because the reward justifies it. If you want to be happily married and you've not yet found the one, there's something, a happy marriage is worth waiting for.
Yeah.
Anyone that is happily married knows it was worth waiting until I found that one that I could bring me joy. Or
on a less severe level, that pumpkin pie or that pecan pie is going to taste better after it's cooked than before.
I know. Well, now my daughter, your wife, we could never convince her that a cooked cookie tasted better than cookie dough.
There's a whole swath of the population that believes in eating the dough rather than the cooked cookie. But that's it. That'll be a different podcast.
Yeah, we'll take that up another time. But what's the reward for waiting as opposed to the reward of just going ahead and jumping in now?
Yeah,
and measure that. And often there is a reward if you just quit waiting and you go for it. But sometimes there's a much greater reward if you wait. And
what are the stakes?
Those.
I like that.
And then a second thing is just, are the people involved trustworthy? And so if, for instance, you're waiting on someone for them to make a decision, maybe you want to hire someone, but they're weighing everything. They're praying about it. And you really want to fill that position, and you're having to wait on this person. Well, how long are you going to wait? Well, it depends on who the person is. If it's a very high caliber a person that could really help your company, and they're reliable, they're not just leading you on. They're not playing games with you. They're not trying to find a way to negotiate, more salary or something. They're honestly seeking God and weighing the cost and thinking through the future. Then if you know the people involved that are causing you to wait, and you trust them, then oftentimes it's worth the wait. and again, sometimes the reason we struggle is we don't trust the people.
Yeah.
I don't trust that those nurses that are chit-chatting behind that desk over there, and now we're running an hour late on our appointment. I'm not convinced that they really do care that we've been here an hour yet. And so I'm going to keep wanting to go up there and move things along. But if I know the person and I know that the wait that I'm enduring, they would not have me do that needlessly. That makes a difference. Who's involved? I can wait longer if I trust the people involved. And going right with that, if I trust the process. And of course, with this election that has just taken place, there's some accusations and questions about, was this a fair process? And of course, then when you're waiting and it's like, well, why is it taking so long to count votes? If you trust the process, then you can wait and say, well, we'll find out soon enough. If you don't trust the process, waiting becomes agonizing. And we've kind of seen some of that. So again, depending on the process, it kind of helps you to decide if it's a trustworthy process, but it's just been bogged down for some reason. Well, this person's on vacation right now, so it's going to be a week until we can get back to you. But I know the process will keep on churning along.
Yeah.
Then I can wait. Again, so you want to kind of evaluate the process and say if basically this process is trustworthy and it's doing it's moving forward, albeit slowly, then maybe it's best just to wait. And the last thing is waiting the best option? I could go ahead and jump the gun right now and just decide, but again, if there's a much greater reward to wait, if really what I'd get now is nowhere near what I would get later, then if it really, every way I look at it, it's just better to wait. Then at that point, you've got to just chill out and say, clearly waiting is the best option at this point. So I realize that, I recognize that, so I need to just stop stressing about it and being uptight about waiting and realize, hey, waiting is the best option, so let me make the most of it. That's why, for instance, I never go to a doctor's appointment without bringing a book with me.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste this time. I may have to wait. It may be the best thing. It's better than, I've got this pain in my side, and but they say the doctor's running an hour late. Is it worth waiting an hour to find out what's causing this pain, or do I just go home and say, no, I'm not going to do that?
Or you just go ahead and take out your appendix
proactively. So at some point you realize, you know what, waiting is my best option. It's necessary. So let's make the most of it. I've needed to read this book anyway. And so here I've got an hour where I don't have to feel guilty about just reading my book. So let me do that. So that's, that's some of the reasons why you should wait. You got to do the math sometimes. And then decide really that's the best. I mean, it's the best option available to me right now is I just need to wait. So let me make if that's the best option, then let me make the best of it. Now, sometimes it's good to not wait anymore. To be honest with you, there's times, even as driven as I am, there are times where I'm too patient. I wait too long. Now, sometimes that can come into, maybe it's a program in your business and it's not really been nearly as successful as the hype and what you hope for, but you put some money into it and you're really wanting to get your money back. And so let's give it one more year. Let's just see if we can't turn this thing around. Or maybe it's a staff person and they have underperformed, they have disappointed you, you've talked to them about it, you've set goals, but it doesn't seem like they're changing. How long do you kind of put up with someone that's not doing the job that you need them to do? And sometimes we can be too patient with people. I mean, I think you should always try to do all you can to help your staff. But is there a point where you realize, now I've been working with this guy for 3 years, and despite all of his promises and apologies, he's still giving me the same sorry results. And it's costing our business. It's costing our customers. So at what point do you realize I've waited enough? I gave this guy 3 years to try to get his act together. And this is not a nursery school. This is a place for adults. And at some point, it's just, that's enough. And so
So with staff persons, you would say 3 years is too long.
We
need a formula here, Richard.
Yeah, well, and again, of course, it depends what you're asking them to do.
Right,
if I want to equip, I want you to start doing brain surgery for Blackaby Ministries. I may have to give you more than 3 years to prepare for that. But if it's just being on time, it's like okay, 3 years. It depends what you're asking,
right?
And also, will you miss opportunities if you wait too long on this? And so and sometimes again that can involve staff. Sometimes a business, an organization, you've only got so much budget. And so because you're sitting on this underperforming employee, you don't have the budget to hire a performing employee.
Yeah.
And so you've gone, now how long are we missing opportunities? And sometimes it's, and I've done this before where maybe I've got someone who's provided service for me before. And so I call them up and leave a message and, hey, I've got a job for you, but they don't get back to you. And you're waiting, and meanwhile you could have already had someone else out there working on it, but you think, well, maybe they didn't get my message, and then you start to realize, or maybe they're just not interested in the work, or they're so disorganized they can't respond. Maybe the longer I wait, the more opportunities I'm missing here. And so at a certain point, it's costing me to wait any longer. And when it starts costing you to wait, then you got to say, okay, at some point, the cost gets too high to wait any longer. And I've waited a reasonable amount of time. Waiting anymore and there are times I've done that. I'm sitting there I've sat actually at a gate at an airport once, reading a book, checking my emails, and it seems like things are running kind of late, and then finally I realized they moved the gate, and they still have the my flight information on the gate board, but they've moved. But if I'd checked in later or whatever, I would have discovered that this isn't the gate anymore they're using. But I almost missed a flight once because I was too patient and I wasn't kind of checking enough just to make sure.
Won't let that happen again.
I should have let my mother had my mother go up and check if she'd been with me.
Yeah.
So it is possible sometimes to wait too long, and I've known people like that. They sat on and sometimes, by the way, churches will do this. We've been in decline for years. We probably should make some significant changes, but let's wait one more year.
Yeah.
Let's wait till the end of the decade. And before you know it, there's nothing left to change now. The resources are gone. The opportunities are gone.
Yeah.
And so, I'd be watching that as well. And just to say, at some point, we can't afford to wait anymore. We have to take action. And so sometimes, by the way, perseverance is normally a good thing, but you can also persevere in the wrong way. You can persevere for a losing cause. Yeah. And you realize, wait a minute, why do I keep persevering in this? And I don't want you to bring up cheering for the Buffalo Sabres, but
I wouldn't have dreamt of it,
because I don't think it's been too long yet. I think 45 years, 47 years.
Drop in the bucket. When you look at the grand scheme of things.
It's when you take a short view and think 50 years, that's short-term thinking.
Yeah, short-sighted people would have abandoned it.
I mean, we're not even
decades ago.
We have not even hit the century mark yet of cheering, and so you got to persevere.
Great dynasties take time to build.
That's right. So there are those moments which I can't see that happening with my hockey team, but in other areas of life where you just realize, I'm holding on, I keep waiting, but I need to be realistic here and realize this person's not turning it around. This situation is not getting better. I kept hoping. Sometimes, to be honest with you, being an optimist can be a fault. You keep hoping for change, but there's no real evidence that change is coming. It's just wishful thinking. And so, I think you have to do some math. And so really for our listeners today, it's kind of a funny kind of topic in some ways, waiting. But what I would encourage our listeners today is take a moment and just take an inventory of those things you're waiting on right now. Yeah. Maybe you're waiting on God to do a fresh work in your church, your family. Maybe you're waiting on people to finally come through the way you always thought that they could. Maybe you're waiting on people to keep their promises that they made you. But look at the things you're waiting on, and maybe you just need to ask yourself: are there some things that, when you take a close look at it, you just realize it's just worth the wait. I'm going to hunker on down here and wait it out, because it's the best alternative is still to wait until it comes to pass. But there may also be some things in your life where you realize, I've waited long enough on this. I've only got one life to live. I'm only in this leadership role for so long, and I need some results. I need some fruit. And there's been more than enough time invested in this, more enough money, and my own personal investment that if nothing's happening yet, maybe it will one day, but on my watch, it's just time to move on. And so don't sit on stuff. But try. You let God help you recognize the difference. Sometimes it's worth still waiting. Sometimes you don't want to wait another day. And you're going to need God to give you the wisdom, and you're going to just need to do the math and look at the people involved. Do I trust this person in this process, or do I not? And do I feel like God has asked me to wait? And if He's asked me to wait, I better just settle in. And finally, just realize that when you wait with God, it's never inactivity. My dad's always said, waiting on the Lord is one of the most strenuous things you'll ever do. Because He'll be growing you, and He'll be building your faith and your confidence and your hope. There's a lot God can do in you and through you while you're waiting. So don't waste your waiting.
Yeah.
Use your waiting well, and maybe it's so that you can grow. Maybe God is saying, you're not ready yet. So let me grow you, so that when you're ready, then right in my perfect timing, I'll do what I've always wanted to do in and through your life.
Well, it's a great podcast, and it's a part of all of our lives, waiting, big and small. So thanks for walking us through this, Richard.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If this is something you enjoyed, it really makes a difference if you leave a review and a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. We always love hearing from our listeners, so email us at podcast@blackaby.org.